Hello, and welcome to Property Law. My name is David Koenig. My last name, like many American last names, originated elsewhere. When my family came to the United States shortly after World War I, it got misspelled and subsequently has been mispronounced all the time. In German, it means king, but as it's pronounced in the United States, it depends on where I happen to be. When I grew up in the Mid-Atlantic, people mispronounced it as Koenig. Moving to Midwest, people now mispronounce it as Koenig. Well, what can you do? I say this to you for two reasons. One is a personal reason. I say it out of respect. That is to say, I don't want to mispronounce your name. And if I do, I urge you to correct me so that I can show you the respect of using your name as you wish it to be pronounced. The second reason is more related to the substance of the course. And that is the fact that American law, like the United States itself, is a varied and diverse country. Varied and diverse country. It has a diverse geography. Geography that runs from the Northeast, or we might say the Northwest, whichever, to the South, to the Great Plains, to the arid regions of the Southwest. And the law of property is affected by geography. Geography is one of the features that affect the law of geography and make it very different. So just as I would say, how is my name pronounced? I would say, well, it depends. It depends on where I am at the time. The same affects American law in many, many regions. That is to say, it depends whether we're talking about property law in New England or we're talking about property law in Arizona. The difference can be very, very great. Geography explains part of this, but so too does our diverse origins. Very important for us to understand that North America was settled not just by the English, and although the vast bulk of our law is Anglo-American law, we still have vestiges of legal mechanisms and principles that come from the fact that even before the English got to North America, the French and the Spanish had established colonies here. And to this day, the legacy of their legal tradition, that is to say, the legacy of the old Roman law civil tradition, is followed in certain important respects. So we have to understand that as well. Also, we have to realize that the vastness of the United States has meant that law has developed locally, in many cases, without any centralized influence. There was no, the notion of centralized courts is a much later development in American law. And law, therefore, in fact, this is an English common law tradition, is very sensitive to local factors, to local needs, to local norms and local ideas. Property law is largely the creation of the states, of the individual states. State courts develop and interpret rules. State legislatures enact their own statutes to govern law. There are some unifying factors. There have been efforts, for example, to restate the law. The restatement of property is one way to do this. And we shall see the overarching influence of protection of rights by the United States Constitution is going to impose a certain kind of uniformity on American law. But the fact is, the law varies, especially the law of property from state to state. We now have 50 states and the District of Columbia. Law varies tremendously. Now, we should ask, and I think you deserve to know, does this mean, am I going to have to know 50 sets of rules of property in order to get through this course? No, you're not. There are certain common threads that I will be emphasizing, and at times pointing out where those common threads fray and become divided up into different localistic, regional applications and different rules. The purpose of this course is to prepare you to know about American law, American property law, well enough to pass the bar exam. Well enough to take the bar exam, especially the multi-state bar exam, which has many of these more common issues presented to them, and to do so confidently. I want to make sure that you do know the law. And this is an important foundational principle of this course, and we will be returning to it all the time. At the same time, I want to convey to you the excitement of property law. Now, excitement, property law, how can you get excited about recording deeds? How can you get excited about spending hours in a county courthouse searching the title of property? How can you get excited about a condominium owner and whether she can keep her pet cat or not? Well, these are the things of which property law is made. Property law deals with relations between people. Property brings people together. It also divides people. It brings people together in the form of husbands and wives, parents and children, neighbors, and the individual and the state. All of these are areas that are human. We are going to look through our casebook at some very human situations, situations where emotion plays a great deal in the way that the law can be used, and the law is needed in many respects to control some of this emotion that makes these cases so heated and, as we like to say about America, litigious. We love to sue. We are a litigious people. My own interest in property law derives from my original training as a historian. I have a PhD in history from Harvard University. I have written about property law, the history of property law, for nearly 40 years now. And I've become ever more interested in the way it applies to our daily lives. It's something that has enabled me to be an expert witness or consultant to cases before the Supreme Court of the United States, before the highest courts of Maine and Massachusetts, and has enabled me to really convey to my students, I hope, my first year property students at the law school at Washington University in St. Louis, the real meaning and importance of property law and the way to understand not just what law is, but as we'll be returning to many ways, what law does in our society. Now, to get this across, we will have to lecture. We will have some roundtable discussions that you will observe with students and then be brought in and drawn in and engaged in it with your own answers. This will be a very, very important part of it. We'll also have live sessions where I really hope that we can connect in this way, that we're not thousands of miles apart, but that we're brought together, just as property brings people together, but that this course will bring us together. So I'm looking forward to this. I hope that I can share my excitement with you, and we should now move on.